Hello, hi, welcome to the June wrap-up. And the new filming location, apparently, I have my iced coffee behind you and I have my iPad in my lap. We're here to talk about June books. Just a quick note, this is going to be the last wrap-up for a while, because after this, I am doing quarterly wrap-ups due to me going on vacation. So yeah, that's that. I think that's the last thing to note. Any vlogs I mentioned will be up above in the cards, and podcast, of course, will be mentioned, and that's always in the links below. Blah, blah, blah. I think that's everything. I'm gonna go into stats. I'm a stats nerd. If you are not, that is okay. I do put in the chapters when I start actually talking about the physical books, or, well, I didn't read any physical books, but the books I actually read. So you can just skip ahead to that point. You know, good times. June, I read 12 books. Only 3 of those were not gay. So, you know, look at me go. It was a small amount of pages, like 1,275. Whoops. But it was the most amount of hours listened at 65. Yeah. This is like a third of the amount of pages I normally read, but like twice as many hours. So that's fun. My average rating was 3.85. There were 4 rereads. And 6 were authors of color. Exactly half. I forgot that. Wow, look at me go. I read a contemporary, erotica, 2 fantasy, 5 horror, 2 romances, and a sci-fi. One of those horror is literary horror. It should be literary first, but the things doesn't have literary as an option, and adding it now would just be annoying. We're halfway through the year. I don't want to have to add another section. So technically I read a literary and 4 horror. Don't worry about it. Horror's the secondary genre. Format, again, obviously it's going to be audiobook heavy, you would think, but it's only 6 audiobooks. It was half audiobooks with 1 mixed media, so 7 audiobooks. And the mixed media one was a short book, and I only started the audiobook a third of the way in. So it was like 4 hours of it. I don't know. Anyways, 5 ebooks. Good times. 6 were adult, 2 were new adult, and 4 were YA. Yay. There were no debut authors this time, but 7 I had read before and 5 were new to me, which we love. Ratings. We have a 5-star. That was a reread. A 4.5. That is the first book I read of the month, so my favorite of the month is the first one. A 4.25. 5, 4 stars. A 3.5. 3 stars. That's funny, and that is it. Which I'm happy about. So, you know. Okay, me starting to talk about books now. Wow, me talking about the stats took less time than normal. Honestly, look at me go. I'm gonna take a quick break, weird cut, because I'm going to drink some coffee. Oh, the sugar's on the bottom. Stay there, please. Thank you. The first book I read of the month is my favorite of the month, because it's the only one that wasn't a reread and higher than a 4.25. Whoops. That's When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. The sequel, Singing Hill Cycle. That's what it is. Second book in that series. I think there's supposed to be 10 at some point. There are a bunch of novellas following a character who goes around and collects stories, to learn about history and people's lives. And, there's a bunch of people who do this, and then, all these stories are collected and put in one giant building or library or something like that. So that it's like public access and whatnot. And so they come across these tigers. My shock when the tigers start talking and then turn into a woman. And it's about the main character telling the story of this famous tiger. Because apparently it's just a thing where tigers can talk and turn human. Who fell in love with a human. And then trying not to be eaten by these tigers, and the tigers interrupting them and telling their own version of the story. And like, it's about storytelling and the 2 versions of story, like how there's different versions and all this stuff. And how biases, like the human version is very much on the human side, and the tiger version is very anti-human, right? That's the whole point of it. It was really well done. The storytelling within the storytelling was really good. That was in the finishing series vlog. That was gay edition. And yeah, that was good. And then I read the only other book for that vlog for this month, because I pre-read a few in May, was Cruel Seduction by Katie Robert, the 5th book in the Dark Olympus series. I think so. Neon Gods, and then Wicked Beauty and Electric Idol, and then the last one, and then Cruel Seduction. So yeah, I think it's the 5th one. It's connected to both Wicked Beauty and the 4th one that I can't remember the name of it on the top of my title. Or on the top of my title? What? On the top of my head. Dude, I'm not gonna go in depth about the relationship in it, because I go crazy trying to explain it in the vlog. But, yeah, you know, when, you know, you are forced into a marriage with this guy, and there's a whole bunch of political intrigue. It's very heavy on, like, going into more of the stuff that's been hinted out throughout the series with the whole political intrigue, what's going on with the city, all this stuff. So, you know, you're forced into marrying this guy who's kind of evil, and he ends up sleeping with your ex-boyfriend. And so you end up sleeping with his best friend. And then you end up being a throuple with your ex-boyfriend and your husband, but also on the side you're banging his best friend. Katie Robert really went, hey, you want throuple? You want poly? Well, here you go. Anyways, it was good. 4 stars. I think that's on par that I've rated all of them since Neon Gods. Did I low-key contemplate rereading Neon Gods? Yes. Now, the weekend reading vlog was The Darkness Outside. I also did audiobook for this one. This one's a enemies to lovers sci-fi romance, kind of. There's these 2 guys who are like 17 and 18, from different factions that are at war, on a spaceship together, and they are on a rescue mission for one of their sisters, but there wasn't like enough money to just send him, so they had to like team up with the other people from the other faction, and so they each sent a person, right? Except the AI on the ship is a little suspicious, a little weird. Some things aren't making sense, and so I do like that you learn what is happening. You learn why the spaceship's being weird, what's actually happening, all this stuff. I think around halfway through, maybe a little before that, because then you get to like sit in the knowledge of what's happening. The characters do as well, and you get to see their interactions and whatnot throughout it. One thing I will say, the main character, the way he thought, especially about his love interest, the other main character, I don't remember either of their names, don't ask me, gave me the ick, and I kind of had an issue because of that. And that's why it's a 3-star. I will not be reading the second one. That hasn't even come out yet. So just know that. But yeah, it was a book. I read it. I liked it. I think this means I should read more sci-fi horror, though. The whole time I was thinking of 172 Hours on the Moon and how good that book is. Okay, next up is a book that I reread. I read this book, I think in October, The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen. I've read this sequel, the second book, I think in February of this year, right? And I've been wanting to reread the first one. This is like on the list of my favorites of 2023. This was the second one. This was right after Bloodmarked. Wild, I know. So it is good soup. Obviously, I wanted to reread it for a long time, and then I would like occasionally check Libby and it wouldn't be available, and then all of a sudden it was available, and then I was like, I put aside like a whole week of my life to reread it. And it was worth it. It's still so good. 5 stars. I highly recommend. If you want historical gay romance, go for it. Have a good fucking time. It's so chaotic a lot of the time, and I love it. You know, and good times, and it's just a good book. I'm not gonna go in depth about it because it will be like my 5th time talking about it, but I really love it. It's like one of my favorite books of all time. Then I reread The Ghost We Keep for the podcast. Reading it again made me recognize things in it, and let me tell you, that was a time. It was an experience. We will not be talking about how this made the fish feel better, this book's depressing as fuck. And what makes it even sadder is that it's based off of a real thing that Mason Deaver went through, being their father, being killed in a hand run. And so this was basically their version of therapy. Valid. Like they talk about in the author's note how they had already written a second book because like they'd heard stories of authors once you like come out with your first book and whatnot, like all this stuff, having a sophomore book will be as good, they did all of the stuff, the stress of that was a big thing with them. So they pre-wrote a sophomore book, their second book, before the first one, before I Wish You All the Best, got published. And it was like ready to go. And then that experience happened. And then they scrapped that and wrote The Ghost We Keep. And you can tell the grief is palpable. It's sad as fuck. It follows a teenage, non-binary, person, dealing with the trauma of, and survivor's guilt of, I'm like 98% sure that they're the one that finds their brother, their older brother, after he dies in a hit and run, right? Survivor's guilt, the toxic friendships that they're going through before this and how it's affecting them now. And it's a lot about how people view the dead after they're gone, when they're grieving them, like how different people see that person now, and like it's plays with time a lot, and I get why. And they're dealing with the fact that their brother was not a good brother, like most of the time. Like occasionally he had his moments, but most of the time he was just a jerk and low-key a bully and all this stuff, and having to come to terms with, yes, that's true, but also missing your brother and everything that's changed because of that, the relationships that have changed, what it means to love, all that stuff. It's sad as fuck, and it's kind of short. I recommend. I think I kept my rating at 4 stars. Yeah, 6-hour long audiobook. I recommend. I read it in one sitting. Not a good decision. Another reread, Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1. After finishing Oran 2 months ago, I decided, because there's 2 separate mangas that I'm in the middle of, Fruits Basket and Tokyo Ghoul. I did not know. Like, I thought I was reading Tokyo Ghoul recently. No, it was 2020. Fucking chaos. Time is just a construct. I do remember reading at the pandemic now, but like, good God. So I am, I knew either one, which one I read, I would start from the beginning, which will be like the 3rd time that I've started, Fruits Basket over in like the past 4 years. Love that for me. But I decided to do Tokyo Ghoul first. I think it's shorter, but also, after reading Oran, I think more of a horror-based one instead of a romance-based one would be a good idea. So yeah, that's what I did. I reread the first Tokyo Ghoul. I also later on reread the second one. I'll just talk about them both in one sitting. Rated both of them 4 stars. It follows this guy, when ghouls are like a thing that eat humans, and they can be disguised as humans, and he is attacked by this girl he has a crush on, who ends up being a ghoul. And then, something falls on them, a part of a building falls on them when she's attacking him, and she basically immediately dies, and he is on the brink of death, and he needs a liver transplant. And so the doctors, in a split moment decision, transplant her liver into him, and so now he's a ghoul. And so he has to deal with eating human flesh to survive, trying to be human again, trying not to eat his friends, and then all the ghoul territory and political stuff that's going on, especially against the people, the government trying to kill them, and also coming to the fact that like he is technically part ghoul of like one of the most powerful ghouls there is. So like if he comes into his power, if he accepts who he is, he'll kick ass. And so it's just him accepting this new version of himself. And, you know, it's really fun reading these first 2 again, where he's like, he's very much pacifist. He's like, I don't want to hurt anybody, I'm just a nice guy. He does accidentally, almost kill another ghoul who's trying to eat his friend, right? And all this stuff. But, like, he's just a nice guy, and the only reason he's training is in case, somebody's attacked by investigators, right? And all this stuff. And then remembering one of the last ones I read, he was being tortured and then he killed a bunch of people in revenge. I remember the progression of it was really well done, so it's gonna be really interesting rereading them, knowing that's gonna happen. Like, yeah, watching him be basically was not being able to do anything, to like know that he's gonna do that in like less than 10 books, sir. Anyways, that was a fun time. Mangoes and Mistletoe, a book that I think has been on my TBR for a while. It's a Latina, I believe, lesbian romance that's also a baking competition, where they're on the same team for this baking competition that's like one professional baker and one at-home baker, right? And so it's them working together. I think they're both Dominican, and that's the only reason they teamed them up. That's the species I read. And so it's them working together to try to win this competition, but also they kind of had this thing going on. The one that's not a professional baker, I kind of get it. I get the professional baker's standoffishness, because she's like very over the top, peppy, happy, all the stuff, wants to be friends with everybody. And the other one is very low key. She's had a hard time in life and she's just here to get shit done, because if she doesn't, bad things are gonna happen. And so like having to deal with this peppiness a lot. She goes about it the wrong way, explaining how that it's too much for her, but I get it. It was too much for me and I was just reading it. Anyways, it's kind of cute. It's also a Christmas romance, if you couldn't tell from Mangoes and Mistletoe being the name. It was cute. 3 stars. I recommend if you want to read a lesbian kind of erotica. They do bang a lot. That's a Christmas holiday baking competition. Listen, of the 2 holiday baking competition type books that I've read that were romances, this was the better of the 2. So, and then for the vlog where Bestie picked 3 random gay books on my TBR for me to read, I read the most surprising of the month, Summer and Sons. You know, they really do love me. I am getting them to read at some point. It's kind of long. It's like 12 and a half? Yeah, 12 and a half hours long. But it's good. It's good soup. It follows this guy whose best friend moved away to, I believe, Tennessee. And he was supposed to join him, but right before he did, his friend dies. Like, it's believed committed suicide. And so it's him trying to figure out the truth. He thinks that he was murdered, but also he can see ghosts, and he's seeing the ghosts are different. You like, they don't really communicate with you except for in nightmares, and all this stuff. And he was trying to figure out why the 2 of them could see ghosts and all this stuff. So he's also communicating with the ghost of his best friend. He has a roommate thanks to his best friend leaving him the house and whatnot. And the roommate's kind of nice, can see auras and whatnot. And then there's the roommate's cousin. I think his name's Sam. There was a thing where he has like a name but also a nickname, and they use both of them intermittently, and it was a little confusing for me for a minute there. Anyways, he's my favorite character. There's a whole entire conspiracy about curses, and it's just really good. Right? It's just a good time. Also, this one, similar to The Ghost We Keep, is about grief and also recognizing how a person really was when they were alive, and like coming to terms with like that person, and how you like put rose-colored glasses, think about them because they're dead, right? And so especially when they died young and tragically, so like trying to come to terms with the person that his best friend was, with what he views him as after the fact, and viewed him as in the current, as they were best friends, and also like the relationship. Was it gay? Yes. All this stuff. So good times. Good book. I liked it. Thank you very much. that's that. Similar vein, the Taking of Jake Livingston Sam vlog, also a podcast episode. The person I am, the fish read it 2 months ago, maybe, and warned me there's a lot of bullying in it. If you know anything about me, that's one of those things that it's very iffy for me, right? And so they warned me, and I knew it was like the first thing on the content warnings. Getting in my brain, why I didn't realize until like halfway through how heavy the bullying is. Because it's almost constant. Both the main characters, constant, right? And so I think if I was smarter about it, I wouldn't have pushed it until the last minute and had to read it all in one day. I think I would have split it up between multiple days, for my mental health, right? And that's why it's a 3.5. I recognize it's probably a 4 outside of that. But basically follows Jake who can see ghosts. And he, is using his ghost seeing abilities. There's this school shooter who he's seeing, a neighbor died recently. It's about him figuring out the truth, and trying to come into who he is, and his abilities, and, also, you know, just constant bullying. You get both POVs, both him and also the ghost that he's seeing of the school shooter, coming up to, like, learning how it came to the point where he got to that breaking point, and how everything went wrong for him, and all this stuff. So that's that one. There was another one. It was a Holly Black. I didn't put it on my list because I DNF'd it only 1 chapter in, because the writing for it was that type of YA writing that I really despise. So I don't remember the name of it, but that was a thing also for that book. And then Tokyo Ghoul Volume 2, we already talked about that. So the 2 books that finished yesterday, we have Pew, the first one, which is follows a person wakes up. Their like whole thing is that they don't really have memories and whatnot, but what they do know is sleeping churches. Wakes up in a church one Sunday in the middle of a service, and the family who is sitting around them takes them in, calls them Pew, and slowly, like, it's pretty clear that this is like a small Christian town in the South, right? So there's some prejudice where people are like trying to force them into a medical examination to figure out what gender they are, and all this stuff. And also figure out race, because nobody can agree on what race they are, and all this stuff. All leading up, it takes place over a week, all leading up to Saturday, in which there is this festival, in which there's some rumors that there's a human sacrifice and all this stuff. Yeah, it's just a short little book, less than 300 pages. And I really liked it. 4 stars. It reminds me of They. It was They, but instead of political government overreach, takeover, and art, it was religious drama. So if you like They, I recommend Pew. And then I read Ashes of Gold, which was for the weekend reading vlog next month, so I'm not going to talk much about it. Just know it's 3 stars, which is the same that I rated the first book of the duology. I liked it. It was good. I recommend the audiobook, though it was kind of long in my opinion. It was a thing I read. It got me down to middle of 69 series, so you know, we love that. And that's the last thing I read. I finished out at like 10 last night. So let's go. There we go. Everything. This is shorter than I expected. I really expected this to take me an hour. So thank you for coming to this wrap up. I don't know how I'm gonna set it up for the quarterly ones. Do not ask. Next video is that weekend reading vlog for Ashes of Gold, if you want to watch that one. And I think that's everything. Again, like Booooooks podcast, I already mentioned that, but like if you need a reminder, that's there. It's a thing that exists that I spend a lot of time on. I did not mention, I forgot to mention Pew is also for that. I just pre-read it. I'm in my pre-reading era. Anyways, that's that. That's everything. Bessie's also linked below as per norm. And I'm gonna head off. I got a butt ton of editing and pre-recording to do, so till the next video.